On the battlefield, forces rally, but real victory is won with the shoulder-to-shoulder support of trusted allies.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says it's time to make things right with President Trump after their clash at the White House on Friday.
Kiev lost an important ally when United States President Donald Trump halted military aid to Ukraine. In contrast to the United States, the European Union at its London summit decided to launch urgent support to Ukraine. United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced that the United Kingdom had reached an agreement with Kiev to provide Ukraine with £1.6 billion, or $2 billion, to purchase 5,000 air defence missiles. The United Kingdom's support was not limited to this. The United Kingdom also announced that it would provide Ukraine with a loan of £2.26 billion, or $2.84 billion, backed by frozen Russian assets. France, Germany and Italy will provide a total of $19.4 billion. The remaining approximately $10 billion will be split with Canada, providing $3.7 billion, Japan $3.07 billion, and the United Kingdom $2.8 billion in loan financing. This critical support from the European Union is reviving Ukraine's hopes. In addition to the European Union, Norway has decided to provide Ukraine with a historic $1.7 trillion in aid. This massive decision to support Ukraine has resonated widely with the international community and has elevated Norway's role in the war to a new level. We will now examine how this unexpected move will affect Ukraine and the global balance. But before we do, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and give us a like to stay up to date with our content. Let us get started. Norway is one of the largest donors of both military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. To date, Norway has spent €3.35 billion in aid to Ukraine. Compared to the Scandinavian countries Denmark and Sweden, this figure is quite low. For this reason, some critics have argued that Norway is not giving enough support to Ukraine. Critics claimed that most European countries borrowed money to support Ukraine and added it to their national debt. According to them, Norway does not need to borrow because of its huge petroleum fund. In the midst of all this criticism, Norway made a massive exit and virtually silenced all the negative voices. Norway has over €1.7 trillion in the world's largest sovereign wealth fund. This includes about €109 billion in war profits from higher gas prices in 2022 and 2023. With this budget, Norwegians could live on it for 400 years, even if they did not work at all. But this huge budget will now be ready to be used for Ukraine at Norway's discretion. Guri Melby, the leader of the Liberal Party, said in a statement that Norway is one of the few countries that has easy access to large sums of money and therefore should immediately increase support for Ukraine. Erna Solberg, the former Conservative Prime Minister of Norway, confirmed that Norway's support should be increased significantly and quickly. The Liberal Party and the Socialist Left Party have called for an emergency parliamentary session, but these parties are currently waiting for the government's proposal. The leader of the Green Party, with 2.7% of the vote in the polls, reiterated his proposal that Norway pledge €85.5 billion in aid to Ukraine. A foreign ministry spokesperson said Norway is one of the largest donors to Ukraine, pledging at least 167 billion Norwegian kroner, or €14.7 billion by 2030. The spokesperson emphasised that the long-term nature of the investments is appreciated by Ukraine and its North Atlantic Treaty Organisation allies. So how was Norway able to create such a huge fund and send it to Ukraine? Since 2001, Norway has carefully followed the budget rule of spending no more than 4% and then 3% of the sovereign wealth fund each year. It was established more than 25 years ago during the first government led by Jens Stoltenberg to save the vast majority of the country's oil and gas revenues to provide pension security for future generations. Stoltenberg later became North Atlantic Treaty Organisation Secretary-General and recently returned to Norway where he is now finance minister in charge of the fund. Norway is also profiting from a huge increase in gas sales to Europe. It is estimated that Norway has earned hundreds of billions of kroner in the last 3 years. Now Norway is moving to share its profits with Ukraine. The idea of using the fund more actively to support Ukraine and European defence spending is gaining strength in Norway. Sveinung Rotevatn, the Liberal Party's deputy leader for fiscal policy, says that they currently have a proposal in Storting to increase support by 100 billion Norwegian kroner this year. For 2025, support for Ukraine will increase from 3 billion euros to 11.5 billion euros. The Norwegian Foreign Ministry declined to comment further on how much the aid would be increased, referring to Sture's statement. Rotevatn said it has become clear that the whole of Europe needs to change its support and policy towards Ukraine and ensure security in Europe. Foreign Minister Espen Barth Eide pointed out that all other policies they pursue assume that they have a free and independent country and a functioning international world order. In fact, Norway's support for Ukraine has been ongoing since the beginning of the war. Norway has been defending the Baltics and the Nordic region against Russia, as well as providing military and financial support to the Ukrainians in the face of Putin's offensive moves. So far, the Oslo government has sent the Ukrainian army 8 Leopard, 2 A4 tanks, 2 NASAMS missile defence systems, 1,000 Black Hornet small reconnaissance aircraft, Dingo armoured vehicles with Cortex Typhon counter-UAS systems, 100 Mistral air defence missiles, 4,000 anti-tank guns, helmets, bulletproof vests, other protective equipment, 22 M109 155mm tracked self-propelled howitzers. A total of 6 F-16 fighter jets were also donated. The F-16's multi-role capability also allows it to carry a mix of air-to-air and air-to-ground munitions in the same mission, providing flexibility that Ukraine's specialized fighters and bombers lack. This versatility is vital in a conflict where the tactical situation can change rapidly, and aircraft may need to switch between air defense and ground attack roles within a single sortie. The introduction of the F-16 represents a significant upgrade in Ukraine's air combat capabilities. In addition, the Norwegian government has signed an agreement to transfer artillery production to Ukraine and help pay for it. The artillery deal is the rest of the solution to one of Ukraine's biggest problems as Russia's broader war on the country enters its 3rd year. The precision tooling transferred by Nammo is for the production of 155mm shells. According to the plan, the production of shells will be increased by 10 times and the production of other projectiles and rocket engines by half. Production of 120mm tank ammunition will also be increased. Norwegian Defence Minister Bjørn Arild Gram said that we are enabling Nammo to significantly increase its production capacity to help meet the needs of Norway, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and Ukraine. The government has set aside funds so that Nammo can transfer technology and experience to a Ukrainian partner. The funding will be provided under the Nansen Program. Ukraine's Nansen Support Program helps Ukraine defend its people and territory against Russian aggression while maintaining critical public missions. Storting has agreed on the Nansen Support Program for Ukraine, an unprecedented support package for Ukraine. Under the support program, Norway will provide military and civilian support totaling 75 billion Norwegian kroner over a 5-year period. The government presented a white paper on the Nansen Support Program for Ukraine, which provides an overview of Norway's support. So what do we know about the Nansen Support Program? The program, air defence and artillery ammunition, has long been a high priority for Ukraine, and Norway has provided support in these areas. Together with the United Kingdom, Norway is leading a naval coalition to help Ukraine build its coastal and maritime defences, providing broad civilian support to the Ukrainian government leadership and helping to maintain critical public functions in sectors such as energy, nuclear safety, and health to keep the wheels of society turning in the face of continued Russian aggression. In 2023, Norway provided 10 billion Norwegian kroner in military support for Ukraine under the Nansen Support Program. Norway's air defence support was vital not only for the Ukrainian military forces, but also to protect the civilian population, apartment blocks, and critical infrastructure. Norway's military and civilian support is helping to save lives. Norway provided flights for the evacuation of more than 2,100 Ukrainian patients and accompanying family members to various countries in Europe. More than 350 patients have arrived in Norway to receive treatment in Norwegian hospitals. Norway's support to the Ukrainian authorities through the World Bank ensures that 500,000 employees in the school system receive their salaries every month. Norwegian funding is also being used to pay the salaries of 145,000 civil servants and 56,000 ambulance and fire brigade personnel. Since Russia launched its full-scale invasion, Norway has provided 3.5 billion Norwegian kroner to help Ukraine buy gas, repair critical infrastructure, and keep the country's electricity companies running. Norwegian companies' investments made Norway the largest investor country in the green energy sector in Ukraine before Russia's full-scale invasion. As part of its long-term support plan for Ukraine, Norway has increased its support for the energy sector to 3 billion Norwegian kroner, or about 274.2 million United States dollars. Norway is currently providing financing to secure electricity supply for around 1.5 million people and industrial activities in Ukraine. The Oslo government is making a serious effort to ensure that at least 1.5 million Ukrainians do not get cold. Norway is also contributing to the reconstruction of power plants in the Dnipro region, Odessa, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Lviv. The latest procurement through UNDP will make it possible to deliver equipment to the Dnipro region this winter, providing an additional 80 megawatts of capacity to the national power grid. The equipment costs will be covered by the fund announced by Prime Minister Støre in June. The fund will be used for energy-related projects, as well as other types of support to Ukrainians. This will cover everything from providing electricity to entire cities, to providing individuals with packages with ceiling strips for windows, to better insulate homes from the cold during power outages. Such measures will enable Ukrainians to continue living in their homes instead of fleeing. In fact, Oslo aims to support the Ukrainians in the energy field, while helping them to hold on even more firmly to the defence of the homeland. As Norway continues its support for Ukraine, it is also dealing major economic blows to Russia. The Scandinavian country is one of Europe's most important oil and gas reserves. The Barents Sea, which Norway shares with the Russian Federation, hides real oil and gas treasures. According to estimates, the deposits there contain 2/3 of the country's remaining oil and gas reserves. In wartime 2022, 93 fields were in operation on the Norwegian shelf. Of these, 70 were in the North Sea, 21 in the Norwegian Sea, and 2 in the Barents Sea. Oil and gas accounted for 73% of the total value of Norwegian commodity exports in 2022. Norway became Europe's largest supplier of natural gas in 2022, replacing Russian flows that were cut off after the invasion of Ukraine. It now contributes about 1/3 of the continent's gas. Natural gas sales from Norway totaled 124 billion standard cubic meters last year. This was more than the previous record of 122.8 billion standard cubic meters set in 2022. Total oil and gas production was the highest since 2009. Norway's oil and gas revenues tripled, earning 140 billion United States dollars in 1 year. Most of this money goes to the Norwegian government, which owns a 67% stake in Equinor, the country's energy giant. So Norway is printing money thanks to oil and gas. Before 2022, Russia sold its fossil fuels primarily to Europe. Russia was an ideal export market because it could build a network of pipelines connecting it directly to its customers. Some pipelines were a legacy from the Soviet era, but in the 21st century, the network was expanded to include Western Europe. Nord Stream 1 and 2 were crucial for this, as they connected Russia directly to Germany. Germany was an important customer, as it is by far the largest energy consumer in Europe. It was used for electricity generation, heavy industry, and home heating. But Germany is now looking for new suppliers from Norway, the United States, and the Middle East. France, which relies on nuclear power, does not need Russian gas as much, but still supports sanctions against Moscow. Italy, another major market for Russian gas, is trying to reduce its dependence by looking for alternatives in North Africa. Russian oil supplies to European Union countries have also been embargoed as part of the sixth package of sanctions against the Kremlin, which came into force at the beginning of June 2022. Member states have also set themselves the goal of finally ending their dependence on Russian gas within the next decade. In 2023, Russian oil and gas exports reached $30 billion United States dollars, 3 times less than in 2022. In 2024, the value of Russian energy exports to European Union countries was even lower. Moreover, according to official data, the Kremlin's revenue from the sale of fossil raw materials fell by 24%. Putin cannot replace European Union oil and gas customers in such a short period of time, so Russia's energy market power is disappearing. Most of Russia's oil and gas companies are state-controlled, especially the giants Gazprom and Rosneft. But Norwegian oil and gas giant Equinor has quietly taken over the crown that once belonged to Russia's Gazprom PJSC. Norway now supplies 30% of the bloc's gas. Before the war, Gazprom supplied around 35% of all European gas. And of the more than 109 billion cubic metres of natural gas Norway exported to Europe last year, about 2/3 was marketed and sold by Equinor. As long as the bloc remains heavily dependent on fossil fuels, Norwegian hydrocarbons will be vital to keep the lights on in Europe. Norway has the world's 22nd largest oil reserves and the 17th largest natural gas reserves. The gap in the European market for these strategically important supplies is being filled by Norway, which has become the largest supplier of the blue fuel since Russia's aggression in Ukraine, supplying almost half of the EU's demand for the resource. According to data from the Continental Shelf Office, Norway set a monthly gas production record of 379 million cubic metres per day in December 2023. In terms of black gold, deliveries from Norway to European countries at the end of last year amounted to 1.85 million barrels per day. From a financial point of view, the figures were quite impressive. Oil prices exceeded $100 per barrel, a historically high level, more than double the 2020 price. Oil continued to be at a fairly high price level for the next 2 years, as it remained above $80 per barrel for 2023 and 2024. Benchmark European gas prices peaked at €170 per megawatt hour in 2022. This translates into about $200 for every megawatt hour. Before the crisis, prices were around 10 or 20 euros, so energy prices increased more than tenfold at the peak. Afterwards, prices fell in Europe as the price per megawatt hour went up to the 20 to 40 euro range. Nevertheless, this is still quite high, as it is double what it used to be. The country is now the largest oil supplier to Germany, Europe's largest energy consumer. It used to be only the 4th largest supplier for the European Union. Overall, Norway is now the 2nd largest oil supplier, closely following the United States with $57 billion against $52 billion. The country has become the EU's largest supplier of natural gas due to Russia's declining market share. In other words, the Nordic state was saving Europe while standing in the way of the Russian Empire. All these developments prove once again that Norway is a critical partner, not only for Ukraine but also for European security. United States policy remains uncertain. The West continues to struggle to define a common strategy, and hopes for peace are fading. Meanwhile, Russia is becoming increasingly isolated on the international stage. While the balance in the world is changing rapidly, the future of the war remains uncertain, and new surprises seem inevitable. All eyes are now on developments that could change the course of the war. We hope that the coming days will bring Ukraine not only victory, but also the peace and tranquility it deserves. Thank you for following us.